is singing. So what we're trying to get into being accustomed with doing is engaging in the same kind of activities that they do in the eternal dwelling, where Krishna never leaves. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Gana Vallabha Yamuna Tira Shrimad's Divine Grace, founder of Iskana Bhaichar, Nadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Ki Jai, Ananti Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Their Most Merciful Lordship, Shri Shri Radhakunja Bihari Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladev Mai Subhadra Ki Jai, Shri Nataji, Shri Balagopa Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Nitai Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord Esprit of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. In every temple, our deities are being worshipped by the invocation that we have with chanting of Radhika and Jabadai. Yeah. Every temple chants that mantra. So Prabhupada considered this very special. You can see in his conversations with George Harrison when he was in London. So we are reading from Shrimad Shrimadbhagavatam. Are you familiar with our Shrimadbhagavatam? Do you have computer access? Okay, it's all free. Go online, the database. I think it's .org. Are you familiar with .org? Right? And then all these books. This is one of a volume of 30 books that Srila Prabhupada explained would be law books for the next 10,000 years. And so we're studying from them and are learning by the study how compacted every verse is in this with spiritual realities and laws of God that are revealed and being established and being conversed about. And that these are the laws that should govern society. So as the study of this continues in our life, these texts are given to produce in society the members of society that become what is called the Brahminical culture that can give advice to the administrators of the laws. And there was a time when the world worked under such supreme divine control that the whole world was under one control, one government. But now the most recent of that happening was 5,000 years ago, and this was spoken by a young boy at the age of 16 years old. His name was Sukadeva Goswami, because his father, Vedavyas, is the incarnation of God's, I guess you could say, they say literary incarnation. So normally when we refer to the term literary, we mean referring to text or, right, referring to written words. So this is Vedavyas' written words, which he is also giving the privilege to Ganesh to write, is being designated by itself as that teaching which exceeds all other teachings, in which there is no other need for authorization by any other teaching to validate the solid truths that are contained in these books. And the guarantee is that if one will read this Bhagavatam from Canto 1 to Canto 12 to the end, it is guaranteed that one will be self-realized. Self-realized is the beginning of knowledge, so that the application being realized, then one engages actually here in this world in the same kind of engagements that one will be able to continue in more perfectly after this life. So we chant an invocation to plead with the Supreme Person to grant us his very own darshan by reading from those words that he has spoken himself. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Naranam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiraye
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Nasta Praishu Bhadreshu
Nashtaprayashu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Naistaki. Just by even recognizing the nature of this Bhagavatam immediately puts the person now, as myself, is being put into the privilege of being able to recite it. We have to realize how insignificant my own contribution to the world is as compared to how elevated and exact the principles being given by the supreme teaching of the personality himself, Veda Vyas. Are we in text 47?
46 books.
46, which the purport is one sentence long, so we'll see the next two purports are very short, but I have been known to be able to go on for hours without a purport at all, so we'll see what happens here. Text 46, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 46. Tad Dharmanya Mahabhaga Tad Dharmagya Mahabhaga Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Virginam Narati Praptum Virginam Narati Praptum Pujam Vanjam Abhikshnasa Pujam Vanjam Abhikshnasa Taddharmadya Mahabhaga Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Virginam Nirati Praptum Pujam Vajyam Abhikshnasya Taddharmyagnya Mahabhaga. These are tough ones. Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Vidrinam Narati Praptum Pujam Vanjam Advikshnasa Taddharmagnya Mahabhaga Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Vijinam Narati Praptum Pujyam Banjam Abhikshnasa. Sorry, Dave, we're on Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 46.
Chapter 6, 46.
7.
746?
Yeah.
7?
Right.
It's 7, yeah, 746.
Okay, so anybody like to chant?
746.
Taddharmagnya Mahabhaga Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Vijinam Narati Praptum Pujyam Banjam Abhikshanasa Taddharmagnya Mahabhaga Bhavadir Gauravam Kulam Vijinam Narati Praptum Pujyam Bandyam Abhikshnasa. Therefore, Dharmagnya, one who is aware of the principles of religion. See, Dharma and Gya is knowledge, and Dharma is principles of religion. And there we go. Mahabhaga, the most fortunate. Bhavadi, by your good self, Gauravam, glorify, Kulam, the family, Rijinam, that which is painful, Na, not, Arti, does deserve, Praptum, for obtaining, Pujam, the worshipable, Vandyam, respectable, Abhikshnasa, constantly, Tadharmagnya mahabhaga bhavadir gauravam gulam rijinam narati praptam bhujam vandyam abhikshnasa. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Abhacharanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O most fortunate one who knows the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipful. Please repeat. O most fortunate one, who knows the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipful. O most glorious one who knows the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipful. Purport by His Divine Grace of Bhaktivedanta Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A slight insult for a respectable family is sufficient to invoke grief. Therefore, a cultured man should always be careful in dealing with worshipful family members. Jai So this is still Mother Draupadi pleading the cause for what she would, in her mind, feel is respectful as she's been trained. You can see how strong. Now here is the mother who has just lost her youngest most children, 5 of them, in their sleep. And she's defending the one who they know did this to her children. So see the kind of inbred mercy and respect that has been brought into her by habit through the culture that was prominent on the planet at that time. It was the place of a woman to have this kind of warm-heartedness, loving kindness. But this is extraordinary as well on her part, because she's revealing a kind of mercy that you're not seeing here displayed. And as I discussed earlier, what might reflect as what might look to be merciful ends up being that which could cause them more suffering in their afterlife. So, Srila Prabhupada saying that a slight insult for a respectable family is sufficient to invoke grief. So, when people are insulted without a cause, we've discussed before, if a person slanders you or speaks evil, especially to your face, and you just withhold it, you don't say a word, just let them speak all they want. The more they go on and on and on, the more you are absorbing all of the pious activities they have ever took part in. It can go all the way up to them losing everything. And that's what happens then. What to speak, we're talking about respectable. So, respectable doesn't necessarily mean transcendental and devotional. devotee. So if the way culture was made at the end of Treta Yuga, which this was talking about, such inbred feelings of mercy towards that, but then to say that one who insults, this is kind of somewhat contradictory. Because see, on the one hand, we're saying to insult a very respectable family member is a very big offense. But the family member we're talking about has just killed 5 children in their sleep. So what kind of an offense is that? If offending, and these were family members of respectable, worshipful devotees, which Mother Draupadi is expressing herself at this moment to be the most of, by this feeling of her kind of life, love for life, and the love for the ability for all souls to be able to continue their living existence. But again, it can be looked at from the place of a woman's sentimentality as well. What is really good to know, which reading the Mahabharata gives, is the background of these souls. Because see, on the one hand, when all these contradictory circumstances are going on, when you know the background of their life and why they were being brought into those circumstances, then you come, everything's like a puzzle piece put together, and all the pieces fit properly. Why Karna was born up the river, sent up the river by his mother, because he previously had relationship with that family before. And all these are explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this is also reference to what might be called, what we were talking about the other day, is Brigu, who has knowledge of every soul's karmic reactions, due to the fact that he has perfect knowledge of the universe. Now, if the souls who are tending his library have the function and facility to be able to know your name given to you at birth by your parents, now imagine what kind of knowledge of you that would give him, right? So if they can do this as just being librarians in that library, which keeps all the palm leaves written down by Brigu. And if you go to that library for your palm reading, palm leaf, it's written on palm leaves, that will be your astrological determination of your birth. You can even go so deep as to know the day you will leave your body. But this is a gift passed down father to son. Father to son. And we have in our community Jagaguru Prabhu, whose father read Brigu, whose father read Brigu, whose father read Brigu. See, it's in the family. Now, that doesn't mean he automatically became qualified to read Brigu, but if the father gives the son the knowledge, so this is how it got passed down, and he can read, but this is a very personal. He told me, devotees, see, because devotees then, once you engage in devotional service, all that would otherwise go towards your activities in the material world are gone now, because you're no longer accumulating anymore. The fan, so to speak, that you have unplugged, the fan of karma that you have unplugged, it's still turning, but it's slowing down to eventually come to a stop. And so that stop, that now you are not creating any more future karma, so then good or bad. So even the accumulation you would have towards this person, not necessarily in the devotee's mind that you're accumulating anything, but they're losing it. And this is where mercy comes. This is where the feeling for them, to have pity for your enemy. Because the reason they are fighting against you is they don't have knowledge that you have. Isn't it? Now, I couldn't say this, go into a jailhouse and speak to prisoners behind the prison house. Same way, right? I just spoke to you because they're not of the same mind. But devotees are of one mind. Devotees all want to serve the same purpose of pleasing Krishna. And Krishna reveals how many different ways there are to be able to do that. And each of those acts enabling us to engage, as I said in the beginning, in those activities which are of an eternal nature and can be perfected in this life. As we read in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 64 arts, the gopis know them all, practically speaking. They're all adept at all of them. But they've been with Krishna eternally. See, so there is more to making music. See, when jazz came into popularity by the masses, up until that point, music had been used simply by rote, you would say, by script. People read it and they played it. They were taught how to read it and they were taught how to play it. But to play it, ad-libbing, improvising as you go as well. When this came in, that transformed the musician's mind into now what was possible to express. And as such, people now have come to realize that music itself has with it the characteristic of being an eternal expression. The soul is meant to be able to experience and give, and by starting that process in this life, by this singing, God wants us to be happy all the time and sing and dance. If you know of anything better, any better way, well, I tell you, they just had a celebration last night. If this couple out here is not happy for being wed to each other, I don't know of any other couple that would be fine, more happy, and bringing happiness. Because they were singing and dancing to Krishna's names. It's going all over the neighborhood, you know. Her brother, Gopal, on Tuesday evenings, this young group of guys, they were at an age where normally in American society they go bar hopping, you know, in the evenings, jumping from one bar to hopping, finding girls to have dates with and so forth. But here they are in front of Krishna, the most dear to them, singing Krishna's names. I was in the kitchen cooking, 7 o'clock at that time, I believe it was, and hearing their voices, because these young virgin, I will add that to it. See, we say we're celibate, we're brahmachari, means celibate. But celibate after having spent 33 years in nonsense, you know, out in the material world, I shouldn't say that much, at least 20 years. It's different than those who have been born into the movement from birth, fed only prasadam through their entire lifetimes. See, very important aspect revealed by the Ishopanishads Don't eat too much. Don't eat too little. But here is the thing about that. Prabhu and I were discussing, he's saying now he's cutting down on eating to only have to eat 2 meals a day, which he was already doing. When I came to the movement, I was trying to realize how these people could live on air. But when the principle of prasadam was introduced, along with it, devotees had the knowledge that the body is made by the things we put into it. Scientists now have the knowledge that every 7 years, your body is completely replaced. All the cells in it. And by this understanding, the application Srila Prabhupada said for the first year of being exposed to Krishna consciousness, taking part in Krishna activities, you should fill up to the neck, he said. Fill up to the neck. When you take prasadam, but he's saying take as much as you can and be totally satisfied. So why this kind of emphasis on, in the beginning, take more than you normally would think of yourself to do that? So it'll take 7 years now to get rid of all the sinful forms of food by the consciousness our society has developed us to believe is natural living habits that human beings have to engage. We have to eat to live, in other words. But what we don't know is, in all the acts of eating is the taking of other forms of life. Or the giving of what, like an apple or a fruit. It is the giving of what, taking of what another form of life is giving, which makes us indebted. We think, oh, I put the seed in the ground. But the ground's not ours, and the seed's not ours either. It all belongs to the source from whom all things came, and there's no contract written out by God to give it to anybody else. He's always owned it. So here we are taking, and think that it's ours to take, but we become indebted by that taking to the souls that are giving to us. Without, and it's by force. The potato doesn't ask to be plucked out of the ground, or the carrot, or the plum picked out of the tree. But here is the way naturally nature has made it, that if that tree is not harvested, it will die. If something doesn't pick the fruit. And here's a peculiar thing about dates. I used to, grade dates when they came off the tree. We put them into trays, but I came to learn about if a human being, animals don't do it. If a human being does not fertilize a date tree, it will not get fertilized. And that means it will die. Once these fruit trees produce fruit, if that fruit is not picked, the fruit rots on the tree, and it creates a disease that starts and it goes up into the branches that the fruit came from, because it becomes a poison that back feeds into the plant, and then you can see the death going into. Now we have another circumstance right here with the fruit tree, which I said at the time should never have been planted there, where there's concrete that the fruit fall onto and immediately are bruised when they're ripe, and they fall by themselves when they're ripe. But nevertheless, they're encased, and I don't know how deep the roots are even allowed to grow, because there's probably concrete under that tree. But here's what it has, and it looks like by grafting. When you buy a tree from a nursery, they graft it normally. They will graft it to try and produce a bigger fruit. Or they will try and produce a mixed fruit, an apple, pear, like we were talking about before. But the tree, see, See, this gives evidence of the fact and the symbiotic relationship everything is having in the garden. Everything's depending on something else for its existence. Gives very strong credence to the idea that all these things had to be almost brought up at the same time. Spider couldn't wait around for a fly to evolve for lunch, standing in the cafeteria line waiting for flies to develop, you know. There's only amoebas right now. Couldn't happen like that. Although they do go a long time without eating. I don't know how long they can go. This little tiny bug like that, and when he gets food, eats it maybe once a week, once a month. You ever see how much a bug, they don't eat very much. And they are the same energy of life that we are, only put into a different capacity due to their previous involvement with the material energy. And all of these are displaying evidences of the abilities the soul has in its original place in the spiritual world. But we are only able in this material world to manifest them in part. One species has this ability, another species has that ability. Plants are actually sensitive to the thoughts of human beings. And this is evidence of latent potency as well in the soul. Some human beings are able to read minds. It's an actual process, which I know of. Sometimes minds are not that you would want to read. I was sitting right over there, and a devotee was chanting over there. His mouth was saying one thing, and his mind was saying, God, I'm tired like it. Yeah, I'm thinking, I hear him chanting, yet I'm also hearing him say, I'm tired like anything, you know. If you stare at the sun, you gain while chanting. I don't know if it's done any other way. Possibly pranayama, maybe some other forms of yoga. I was taught this by a senior devotee in the movement, Apurva Prabhu, recognized one of the best books in the movement. And he's been practicing this for 50 years, maybe more. So, his statement, if you look at the sun while you're chanting, I don't know how long it takes, might be just the consciousness, because all these things that are said to be gained as a perfection of a siddhi, they're gained by the perfection of the love in your heart for them to be used for the proper purpose as well. So Krishna doesn't just give easily things that are, people just make a request because they want their own fame, adoration, and distinction. Because these things lead to the fall down of the soul. And then you got to start all over again once you fall down. Basically speaking, you start over.
So if you look at the sun,
I'm sorry?
if you look at the sun while you're chanting,
If you look at the sun while you're chanting, then people will think you're crazy. And you know yourself, you look at the sun for more than 3 to 5 seconds, you're going to burn your eyes out. You'll end up blind by the time you're, spent a year or two doing that. But Bhagavatam explains how to look at the sun. Look through the leaves of the trees. Trees enable you to see the little glitter like a star would from a distance. These stars don't burn your eyes out. So you can see the sun in the same way. But I have come to realize and believe, because Gayatri Mantra is strictly said to be that when you chant Gayatri Mantra, you face the sun. Because the facing of the sun is putting us in proper alignment with the ruler of the planet of the sun, who is inside the sun sitting on a throne, a golden throne. Krishna, in all the thrones that he places his place on, he can trade places at any time he wants to. So he can trade place with Indra, because as Super Soul, He sees. And he has the ability to guide through consciousness as well those whose minds are surrendered to Krishna consciousness. Super soul consciousness as well is the same. And we say Krishna consciousness, but it's actually super soul consciousness that is common, available to each and every single living human being. But even, we were talking about parents, can be taught. And do you know, here's another, and I don't think this is one step beyond, but this is a true account in American history that was a given account in courts of law, and as well by one boy who got lost. He was like 5 or 6 years old. He fell into a well, and they looked at Jews. This boy was loved by the whole community. They got everybody to search for this boy, couldn't find him. And they went to this horse, considered to be the smartest horse. He was asked all kinds of mathematical computations and things of that nature. And he was taught how to sound out the alphabet and how to spell out the alphabet. So when they asked the whereabouts of the boy to the horse, he spelled out Willow Creek Well. I believe that's the name of it. It's something close enough to that you get the gist of the story. He spelled out where the boy was. A horse asked a question in English.
Okay.
Had the knowledge of where, and this was miles away. The boy was in this hole, in a well. Where does a horse get that kind of knowledge from? It's the soul. These are latent abilities. So, see, we can see in this way, just like we look at the internet, it can be used a very terrible thing that people can get lured into traps and they lose their Social Security earnings, they lose everything in their bank accounts by crooks and thieves on it. But as well, they can find self-realization, they can find the truths of the Vedas that Srila Prabhupada is giving. So everything in the world can be looked at the same way. Everything there is in the world can be used for good, be used for bad, or it can be used for transcendence. That's what we want. Our aim is that which goes beyond all that there is in this to experience. Because the experience of pure love that everybody's thinking they can find out there, it will be found in here when we are chanting purely to hear Krishna's name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And every time we say it, it can be the same new experience it was the first time we said it. Increasing with each repetition. That experience of love that Krishna wants to give us, the experience of inside, to the extent that we can contain it. Otherwise, tears flood your eyes so much you can't even chant. I've been there. It's happened. And when I give class sometimes, I get on the verge of that and I have to stop. Of course, timing is everything too. We've only got 5 minutes left of class. You can leave that open for questions, comments, realization. Is everybody having the experience of life that they hoped life would be? Are we having that? Because we can ask that question, and if we're not, then we go to Krishna. Krishna, please. This is the last verse of Gayatri. Shoot into my heart that arrow of your love, just like Cupid gives his arrow of love to those that are in love with each other. Krishna plays that part. When you go to Krishna asking him to give you the person you are most suited for, right? So in the same way, we go to Krishna, to that form, to ask him to fill our hearts with love for him. And love for everything. That means love for everything that he represents, love for everything that he stands for. But with that comes the realization that he has the ability to share his consciousness, Krishna, Super Soul, consciousness, with us, to give us God's own thoughts. Think about that. See, he knows before he goes somewhere that he's going to be there. He knows how people are going to respond when he talks. All-knowing. This is the meaning of all-knowing. And so, too, when we're asked to go somewhere, Krishna can help us to perceive of the audience before we get there. And these latent abilities of the soul that are considered so above and beyond the realm of normal, that they're mostly considered fantasies or folklore or impossible, which Srila Prabhupada said is a word in a fool's dictionary. Impossible. So, we don't seek these abilities, though. Hanuman, he wasn't running around looking to try and get something from Krishna's latent abilities, and yet, in his service to Ram, Lord Ram, and his love to unite Sita and Ram. See, this is the opposite of what business world is looking to do. They're looking to take Sita away from Ram. They're looking to take Lakshmi away from Krishna. Lakshmi is the energy we have put into the form called money. The means of exchange we have that we give value to as representing that which our own energy, the bodies that we are in control of and put the energy out of, that's Mother Lakshmi's energy. And we're claiming that for ourselves. This is why Krishna says on the battlefield, Arjuna, none of this is yours, you know. So there's no expectation of recompense because you're using Krishna's energy, using Krishna's material, which everything is. We have the privilege to be able to use it. But if we think of it as ours, we will only get the belief and the ability to believe to the capacity we as human beings are capable of achieving. But if we give our mind over to Krishna, what are wars formed by minds? Buildings are formed by minds. Worlds are created by minds. The power and the mental capacity of the mind is so overwhelming. What to speak of the purified mind that has come in contact with the all-powerful mind. What are our limitations? Do we have any limitations that we can accomplish in this human form now that we've come to the full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of God and sharing his body with us? Now, what limitation is there for us? So the sky is the limit. And you have, by all rights, through this chanting process, which Krishna is himself giving to us, to empower us, to give us his knowledge, and to realize what Krishna consciousness means. And then when we do come to that realization, my God, what a great treasure Srila Prabhupada has given to the world. Not only has he made a house, the world can live there, but he's revealed a philosophy that can bring peace and well-being and healing, comfort the children's needed, love, association that builds societies It makes human beings have those relationships with one another that are beneficial to know the meaning of life itself, the real meaning of life itself. This is what Krishna consciousness means. We are so fortunate. This teaching that we're being given because of Srila Prabhupada's explanation.
Right.
How would we have such appreciation or the ability to develop appreciation unless it was put into the kind of language we could understand, which Srila Prabhupada does so beautifully. And then with such forward sight and vision to realize how necessary and important it was to put it into word for word form. Even when they wrote the Bible, they didn't think of it as that necessary. And yet how much arguing is going on that they don't agree with what the words say. And even wars. They cause schisms between each other in their same religion. But then what to speak when it evolves into the forms that nations take, then they battle against each other also. And it's an endless cycle that they can't get out of either. Because it is what they believe is justice, it's in what they believe is right and holy and religious, and all these things are perverted reflections until they come to the absolute truth of who the person of God is. And it's all perverted reflections until we come face to face with Krishna. They're saying deity worship is idol worship created by the hands of men. But it is by understanding the form that Krishna is authorizing as deity worship, is giving us a solid foundation to know exactly in our mind when he says to Arjuna, picture me in that form holding the flute. This is the form he reveals for us to be remembering him by. And so every devotee can have this same vision of Krishna playing the flute. Not by every single devotee having a concoction in his mind, but authorized by Krishna. Realization of who Krishna is and what he looks like. The features of his face, the color of his skin, everything. And then what to speak, the words of his mouth. And then he reveals in detail in these pastimes the thoughts of his own mind. And then we read. What we are reading is the thoughts of Veda Vyas. Reading from the very heart, knowing verses that he's given. How many millions of times in how many millions of universes. Krishna. See, that reveals to us by his touch. Krishna can, Veda Vyas, can touch us in the head and say, you have all full knowledge of Sanskrit, every Sanskrit word, all this. That was given to Bhrigu by Lord Vishnu. So in the same way, what to speak, just the language of Sanskrit would be a very small part of that. Now, they have in Christian circles the belief of what is called the speaking in tongues. Have you ever heard of that? Ecclesia. Right? And so what happens, they twist it because they want to use it for their own. When false ego gets mixed with religion, then the thing then becomes a magical display of God's ability in man. But that's not what it was given for. And you see in the account given when the gift was received, that there were people from every nation in the world gathered to hear what was this knowledge of what was being called the Holy Spirit. Do you know what the term in Hebrew to describe this Holy Spirit is? Radhe. See, we know that. We know who that is. but it's disguised. Same way. Srimati Radharani is disguised in Bhagavatam also. But disguised to them for a different reason. Similarly with idol worship, disguised as idol worship to them because what they will do, what they have done to, by their imaginations, try to imitate. It's not imitation. Krishna is looking, Krishna's not looking for us to stand on the head of Kaliya.
What's clear?
The snake head. When he killed the snake that was poisoning. Kaliya is a snake that, I'm trying to think of the, don't we have a pastime? Oh, it's upstairs. He's dancing on Kaliya. You know that picture? You've seen that picture upstairs? We'll go.
In the river Yamuna.
No, you're thinking of Krishna in the causal ocean, Aisha. But this is Kaliya. He was poisoning a water that was killing all the birds that come and anything like that, and people as well. And the stink of it was covering everywhere. So Krishna came, and everybody was afeared. I don't think he was more than 5 years old at the time, maybe 5. And he went into this big stinky poisonous and then started dancing on Kaliya's head as a pastime.
It's in the Krishna book.
This is in the Krishna book, yeah. And so this pastime also has a melodious, all these things are songs that are sung in the spiritual world, that are activities. And then those same souls, now when we go in the spiritual world, those same pastimes will be carried out in a different way, but by the same souls. And Krishna is giving some of these demons pure love after another birth or two. So by now, 5,000 years of ours having passed, these are completely different pastimes that evolve as well. We use the term evolve in a different way. Because relationships evolve. That doesn't mean they become different people. They just become better. Better. That's what we're meant to become, right? Better. But I learned by living with senior citizens what qualities and characteristics people develop through their youthful years, they become stronger and stronger at. And by the time they reach 60 or 70, if they were ornery, that orneriness, it becomes really strong.
Okay.
So as well with prejudice. And they don't become afraid to express it to whoever they want. And it comes out as such a bad way to destruct a very nice friendly relationship. It can be formed just by hearing the kind of language used. So this is how the language can be used as a more powerful source than weapons that are created, because the weapons are not enacted until the words given by someone who believes that they need to be enacted by is given, right? So it's very significant. By the thing you say in a grocery store, when you have a Sika and you're wearing a dhoti, people will take every one of us to believe that. It's just how it is. Somehow on the internet, somebody believes in order to become a Hare Krishna, you have to take LSD. And that's total insanity. And see, making statements like that, actually that's worse than taking LSD.
Okay.
By accusing what now might be in the millions of people of being required to take LSD, when their very foundational teachings are that we should avoid these things that keep us connected to the material world. That we don't use anything in the material world, but everything that can be used as an advancement of spiritual consciousness, we use. And what can't, then this is the function, this is the real function of the mind. But we're filling it up with all other kind of purposes. Living simply means the mind's being used, we either accept it or we reject it. That's all it has to do. I accept this for devotional service. Now I go do the devotional service. Any comments? Any questions? Jai. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai. Prasadam time.
I thought this word was colloquial. Honoring.
Honor.
Yeah, I just Googled it.